when you look at someone like Anwar Awlaki, and you have the U.S. government almost exclusively through leaks claiming that he is an operational member of Al-Qaeda, claiming that Anwar Awlaki was involved operationally with the so-called underwear bomber, Abdul Muttalib, who tried to bring down the plane over Detroit. And you have Awlaki, the smoke that sort of exists around the story of Nidal Hassan and the Fort Hood shooting, and his role with Inspire, the AQAP, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula magazine. And you look at sort of the way that this has played out. Basically what's happened is that the Obama administration is saying to the American people, we have this intelligence on this guy, but we're not going to publicly state what it is. And we're not going to seek an indictment against him in court, but we want to sentence him to death. And we believe that this is perfectly lawful. And when Awlaki's family, before he was killed, tried to challenge the government's right to assassinate a U.S. citizen without giving him any access to due process, CIA Director Leanne Panetta, Defense Secretary Robert Gates, the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, all submitted briefs in the court saying that the evidence is too dangerous to be made public. And they hid behind the state secrets claim. And so Anwar Awlaki never got his day in court. The important thing I think for people to realize is that I don't know whether Anwar Awlaki was involved in any of the things that they have alleged through anonymous officials leaking that he was involved with. But I do know that we have a system of laws that provides for Americans to have due process, to face their accusers, to have the evidence against them be presented. And I feel like we crossed a very dangerous line in authorizing the killing of a U.S. citizen without access to that due process, without having been charged with a crime, to the point where you have the president essentially serving as judge, jury, prosecutor, and ultimately executioner by authorizing or greenlighting this kind of a strike. If Anwar Awlaki said things that I found deeply offensive and that I think potentially could have resulted in him being indicted, and if he was involved with any of those things, they should have indicted him and treated him as a suspected criminal and tried to apprehend him. And I think that while I'm opposed to the drone strikes, for a number of reasons, one of which is I think it's going to make more enemies and it's going to leave us less secure as a nation. They would have been on a lot firmer ground if they had gone through the process of saying, here, American people, is the evidence against one of our own people, and this is why we believe that he needs to be brought to justice in one form or another. So for me, this isn't a story about Anwar Awlaki is some guy who was so misunderstood and that his death was this epic tragedy. To me, the tragedy here is that we crossed a line under a popular Democratic president that I think a lot of liberals would have pushed back against if a Republican was in office. And I believe that we should be responding to acts of terrorism and potential terrorists through the lens of law enforcement and viewing it as a crime and trying to hold them accountable under our laws. And the last thing I'll say about this is that no society is defined by how they treat the wealthiest of its people or how it treats the people that society views as upstanding. Society should be judged, and the principles of a society should be judged on how you treat the least of your people and also the most reprehensible of your citizens. And you could say that Anwar Awlaki did reprehensible things that I think would be deeply offensive to Americans of all political stripes. But if we toss out the rule book in those cases, then we're ultimately fraying the fabric of the republic.